Now it's time for a business spotlight. This is the Adelaide Project.
Hello and welcome to the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight, brought to you by podcastcity.com.au. If you're looking for a way to engage your audience with your amazing content, then you need to speak to them about producing, recording, editing, videoing and distributing your very own podcast. Just go to podcastcity.com.au. I'm Ron Fiedler and welcome back to the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight, a podcast and radio program showcasing the very best of people, businesses, organisations and events right here in Adelaide and South Australia. Are you currently navigating the ever-evolving landscape of work and life? Perhaps you find yourself reevaluating your priorities and searching for a deeper sense of purpose. If those questions resonate with you, then you're in for a treat today because we have a guest whose wisdom is bound to inspire and uplift you. In a world that's constantly rewriting its own rules, where the boundaries between work and life blur, we introduce you to a remarkable book, Free to Be Me. The book is tailored for those of us embracing change and seeking a more profound understanding of our existence. Free to Be Me challenges the norms and beckons you to embark on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. It's a shift rooted in the principles of natural growth, designed to empower you to seize life and live it to its fullest. Our esteemed guest today is Peter Nicholls, the brilliant author behind this transformation masterpiece, with a reputation and a great number of books, including Enjoying Being You, Enjoy Being Proud of Who You Are, and The Hunger to Grow. Peter is living his encore life, spreading joy and wisdom. He's not just an author, he's a singer, a golfer, and an active member of his community. Peter's zest for life is contagious, and he firmly believes in the power of embracing one true self. Joining us in the studio from beautiful city of Adelaide is Peter. He is here to share his insights, his journey, and the inspiration behind Free to Be Me. With 2 children, 6 cherished grandchildren, and a love of his community, Peter's wisdom extends far beyond the pages of his books. So listeners, get ready for an unforgettable exploration as we unlock the true essence of your purpose and unleash the boundless potential within. Peter Nicholls is here to guide us on this extraordinary adventure, and we couldn't be more excited. I'm pleased to welcome to the Adelaide Project Business Spotlight, Peter Nicholls. Peter, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm really pleased to be here, and I really enjoy working with you, Ron. It's always a pleasure. We get along so well, and this is going to be no exception.
Look, I'm glad you've come in. Look, we've been trying to get you in for a while now, and you wanted to wait until your book has been published, and it's here. I've got it in my hand. And Peter, look, I love being around you. Whenever I meet with you, you always make my day brighter, so thank you.
It's lovely to hear. Thank you.
Look, Peter, before we dive into this book, Free to Be Me, can you give the listeners a little bit of background about yourself and your professional background?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I've had a very different career in many ways. I left the desk job back in about my mid-30s and became a recreation planner with the South Australian Department of Recreation and Sport for something like 25 years or so, which was helping people improve the quality of their recreation and sporting opportunities, programs and facilities and all those things that people are looking to improve the quality of those facilities and the programs. And I found I learned a lot about people when they're at their most positive. And this really grabbed me about the huge benefits of what it's like to be thoroughly enjoying being your true self. Hence those books you mentioned, Enjoy Being You. The enjoyment factor has been a core of everything I've been doing. So then when I finally left full-time work in the recreation planning field, I came across some options to get involved in creating myself as an enjoyment mentor, a life enjoyment mentor, which is very different, but
yes,
it's brought me to where I am today.
Look, when you first told me an enjoyment mentor, I thought to myself, how does someone mentor someone to enjoy, to be happy and to be free. How do you do that? How do you mentor people with enjoyment?
The very basic point of that is the only person who knows what they enjoy is the person themselves. I'm not an advisor at all on what people might do. It's probably the last bastion of free choice is what you enjoy doing. So what I do is my program helps to bring out and draw out and unpack all the sorts of experiences that you as an individual enjoy and why. It's all right to find out, well, look, I love playing sport, I love going walking, I love, playing cards with friends. These are all good. But the more important question is why? What does it do to you when you do enjoy that? What are the benefits you get from it? And they're quite significant. And we could spend the whole session talking about that. But it's an amazing, people think, that was fun, so I enjoyed it. So what? Move on, the rest of the day. But in fact, very quickly, there are 5 things happen when you enjoy yourself. And the first one is that your mind's working with purpose. There's an energy driving the process, an emotional energy. It's not necessarily physical energy. Your self-esteem goes up and your self-respect and your self-belief. It's life enriching in some way. Every experience you have, you learn something about yourself or the world. And the last one is probably the best form of virus. Yep. It actually infects everybody around you. And this happens every time you enjoy yourself. And then it ripples on into everything else you do for the day. And that's the basics of what it's all about.
Look, I love that. I really do. Affecting other people with enjoyment. I mean, that is so great. We need more of that. We definitely do. Peter, look, everyone enjoys doing something, but I suppose with what you do is you get them to go a bit deeper so that they can appreciate what they enjoy.
Exactly right. It's a reminder thing as much because it's all there inside the person, because most people who have had a reasonable number of enjoyable experiences through their life, they know it's all there. Life gets in the way and we're told to get on Monday morning, go to work and forget all that. And quite often people just do stuff it down. They become workaholics and forget what it does mean to enjoy their life. So I'm digging into their life, but I think clients tell me one of my facets is I hear what they don't say. They start talking about what they enjoy, and then I like using that expression. What I'm hearing you say is, and I love the way they every so often going, wow. That's right. You've nailed it exactly. That is what I'm saying. I didn't express it that way, but I think it's a question of. It's amazing when you start talking about what you enjoy in life.
Yes.
You open up as an individual. You don't need my prodding. If I can get you to start remembering what you did, and I take you through your life. What did you love at 15 or 20? What did you love in your youth? What do you still love doing today? Then people sort of. There's another expression, aha moments.
Yes.
Oh, that's right. I'd forgotten about so. Oh, I used to really love that. Why? Oh, what it used to do for me was this, and this, So it's a prompt program in many ways, prompting people to remember what they enjoyed and reflect on why it is and what it means to who they are now.
Yeah, you're right there, Peter. A lot of people want to do things that they did as a kid, but they look at, well, I'm an adult, I can't really do that. You look at some people who live extraordinary lives and just don't care, and they live life as a kid. And sometimes it's the best moments is when we do things that we did in the past. It can really bring us back to what life's all about.
Very simple example is if you're in a very serious meeting and someone cracks a joke and everyone laughs, what it does to break that meeting tension is just in that one little action.
Can change the whole meeting and more productive as well. So, Peter, let's look at your book. You've written Free to Be Me, Why Life's Epic is Replacing the Work Ethic. Tell us more about your book and why you wrote it and who it's targeted to.
The other books were more of trying to help people understand what enjoyment's all about, but this one was more about the times that are changing. And the times were changing because pre-COVID, I was always battling against the work ethic. Enjoyment was something that people in a serious job said, we don't talk about enjoyment in the workplace at all. That's something you do at the weekends. It's almost a competitor to the work, slacking off and these sorts of derogatory sort of attitudes towards enjoyment.
Yes.
And things were starting to change over the last couple of decades. Stress and pressure getting on top of a lot of people and looking for ways to deal with stress. They then found suddenly the COVID hit.
Yep.
And the interesting part is not COVID itself, it was the lockdown. People had no choice but to stop and think for themselves. The bosses had no more idea of what to do than the staff themselves.
Yep.
Everyone was struggling to know what happens now. When can we go back to the way things were? And as the weeks went by, the thinking started to change and some shifts started to happen. And things like people starting to decide, do I want to work from home or work in the office or somewhere else?
Yeah.
Things like the boss needs to be concerned about mental well-being now. Didn't want to talk about mental well-being prior to COVID.
Yes, that's true.
That was a dirty word. You risk being sacked if you raise the subject of a mental health issue. All this was changing and the power was shifting to the worker.
Yes.
And I found that people were... In fact, my book, Enjoy Being You, the first one I wrote back in 2000, I put some quotes from it out there during COVID. Well, it was really taken up very strongly. Enjoy being me. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to do. I want to enjoy being me. So just those 3 words captured a lot of attention, which changed the whole way of my thinking. So that it then encouraged me to write what I called a manifesto. Back in 2022, I wrote a manifesto talking about what should happen.
Yep.
That we were born to all be our natural selves and enjoy our best life using our talents and passions. And I put that out into the internet system and got some huge feedback on that, to the point where I was being told by overseas people, saying, this needs to be a book.
Yeah.
And so I thought, yes. So the book really is almost a legacy of my 50 years of working in the area of enjoyment. And needless to say, it's been a labour of love writing it.
Yes.
And it's a book for the times.
Yeah, it definitely is. Look, the book has been designed that wherever you turn to a page, it's going to give you some great tips and advice. It's not just a book that you read backwards and forwards. You stop and you look and you revisit certain pages and certain chapters. And I think the other good thing about it is that when you're having a bad day or you want to change something in your life, there's a chapter there that you can go to and just look at those quotes or those tips that you've got.
One of the things I find is people like is life is basically simple.
Yes.
We were naturally born with certain gifts and talents. We were like anything else in nature. We were intended to mature, flourish and blossom to our full potential.
Most definitely. And I think that's what happened with those lockdowns and all. A lot of people started looking at their talents and saying, hey, my talents are worth more than just money. And they started doing a lot of passion projects that they wanted to do, or they were thinking, I'm going to change career because I'm really passionate about this. And the money is not the key. And that's what I really think out of COVID, some good came out of it. We did have a lot of, negativity. There was a lot of heartache and a lot of sadness. But at the end, the one good thing to come out of that was that people, as you said, reevaluated their lives and decided that it's time to start enjoying their life. Look, Peter, you've written other books. This is not your first. Mm-hmm. The Hunger to Grow, Enjoy Being You, and 52 Life Skill Messages for Teenagers, which also have some great messages. But what can you expect out of this book? If someone is going to read this book, what's the message you want to get them to get out of it?
First of all, it's a book of hope, because I think a lot of, with experiences going around like the Great Resignation and people wondering where they're going, this is a book to simply gets people back to the basics of who they are and reassess their own skills. So if people are looking, it's really actually almost any age. I tend to find it's people who have been in the workforce for some years. Yep. They're almost like 35 plus. Mm-hmm. By that age, they're starting to think, is this what life is really all about? 40s, and I find, for instance, women often have got the children off their hands and want to re-establish themselves in a working career. 50s is commonly known as the midlife crisis.
Yes.
I call it the midlife awakening, but that's
I like that better.
I think it's the much more positive because it is. And then 60, we're starting to think about what we're going to do when we leave work.
Yeah.
So the big O's are often quite significant. People who are going through a shift in their life, a major shift where they're starting to think, is this what I really always want to do? What else could I do? What might I be good at? That's exactly what happened to me at 30.
Yeah.
I looked out the window of a desk job window one day saying, 35 more years of this, 65.
Yeah.
Is that all there is? And then I just get the gold watch and that's the end of it. And I thought, that's not, I need purpose. And out of all this, the one word that is almost key to everything in that book is about finding purpose.
Yeah.
Because purpose comes from your natural self, not from what other people expect of you.
Yes.
We spend so much of our lives being expected to do certain things. That's where the work ethic expected you to toe the line and do what you're told. And so you're right. So then when you look at that purpose bit, you start to see work as part of the reason, but not the whole reason.
Look, Peter, you were a pioneer because you actually did something. A lot of people back then didn't. They just thought that this is my life. Congratulations on doing that and writing this book, because this book is going to give a lot of people, as you said, that purpose and that key to do something that they want to do in their life. Look, Peter, I'd like to read a passage out of your book from chapter 8 called Talented Gifts. Each person's unique gifts are needed by someone, somewhere. Some people's gifts see them labelled as geniuses, yet anyone has an inner genius waiting to be recognised and developed for outcomes that need those particular gifts. Not everyone recognises their inner genius. It is often someone else who tells them, "You're a genius," when the person comes up with the answer that nobody wanted. Great is the leader who can find and extract the inner genius in the people that they lead. Peter, as a leader, how can we harness the gifts that people have to ensure that they're living their best life?
First word is stop. Stop and think. Stop and reflect and review. You can't do this on the run. And that's where the lockdown period was the pause we had to have.
Yep.
Some people might remember Paul Keating saying that once about the crisis and the recession we had to have.
Yes.
I reckon the COVID lockdown was the pause we had to have. We were running on nothing prior to COVID, not looking past Friday. That was all we were concerned about. And then now I do think that's the very first part of it. And if they're going to stop and reflect, the person they're going to stop and reflect on is themselves.
Yep.
The other big word which I like to use is self-awareness. To become aware, and that's another reason why I tend to concentrate on people, usually 45 to 50 plus, because they are becoming aware of who they are. They've spent the first half of their life going through the motions in a sense of learning and growing, learning and growing, learning and growing. It's a linear sort of growth. I mean, I'm generalising here. But then they get to a point in their life where they start to see life differently. They're starting to think, I'm getting some depth of understanding what's going on.
Yes.
And in fact, the life ethic, which is the thing that say it's replacing, is actually put in one sentence. Really, it's when we measure age in years, we measure growth in depth. Depth of understanding self, depth of understanding other people, depth of insight, depth of perspective, depth of wisdom. And the other part about that is that is no longer linear.
Yeah.
That is now exploding exponentially in all directions, because you get the situation where you're changing your thinking and you start to see all sorts of opportunities and possibilities that you'd never considered before. Your mind is going in all directions and it's almost chaotic. The thinking. And this goes on and continues for as long as you stay healthy. So the life ethic is an all-of-life ethic, not based around all your natural skills, whereas a work ethic was all the more the old bell curve that once you get to 50, you've reached the top of the hill and you're on the downhill slide, and you've got to think about getting into the rocking chair and playing with the grandkids. There's an advert on television that annoys me where the husband's just come home from a hard day at work and the wife's looking at him and they're looking at the caravan saying, "Not long now, love."
Yeah, I remember that.
And it's, to me, I think, look, that's great. And I applaud that he's worked hard, that man, and they will enjoy themselves. But they've got 30 more years to think about after that. And it's a lot to think about starting a new life. And that's what I did.
No, it's great. I always look at the Rolling Stones and Keith Richards and Mick Jagger in their nearly 80s. I think they're in their 80s or they're very late 70s, who have lived the life that they wanted to live. And they have not stopped. They have not slowed down. And I think the reason is, and my father's like this too, as he said, I live every day. I don't just stop. And that's what I've got out of today. Don't stop. Find out what you want to do and do it. You've got to stop and think. That's one of the most important things, I'm sure. But, when you come up with what you want to do, you've got to follow that passion. It's very, very good. And look, listeners, I've looked through this book. I've had a read of the book. And the best thing about it is that everywhere you go, you can just flip through and find something like this. Yes, you can. Freely choose to do what you enjoy. Be in control of the whole experience, requirements, exceptions, stress levels, and aims. And there's just so much in here, Peter. Now, Peter, the book is also designed for, it's designed for yourself, but is this one a good one to pass on to other people as well?
Absolutely. I get slightly overwhelmed at the feedback I get from people I don't necessarily know all that well. I had a call, spoke today to the husband of a business colleague I know very well. The husband came on the line and to the phone and said, "Peter, I just want to grab the chance to say how much I've enjoyed reading your book. I've learned so much about me through reading your book." It's a way where it's the chance to actually have a good hard look at yourself and say, "That's me. He's writing about me." And I think that's the part I quite enjoy, is that this is not a book for just everybody out there.
Yeah.
This is the book for you and you and you and you and your father and your sister and your brother and your uncle. And I get consistently positive feedback to say, it was just what I needed to read at the moment, yes.
Yeah. Look, we have, when authors come into our studio, we always display their books, and we've sold one of your copies. A guy who's a philanthropist had a look through the books, and he just picked yours up and said, "I want it." And he's 60. And he said, this is, and he can do anything he wants. He's very well off, but he looked at this book and said, this is what I need now. So it doesn't matter who you are or what part of life you're from, the book is got something in it for you. Look, Peter, you're known as Australia's people gardener. How did you come up with that name?
That goes back to those recreation planning days I mentioned. I was very much in the area of parks and recreation planning because so much of our natural play is in outdoor areas.
Yeah.
Either be it a nice cultured park in the city, like Adelaide Parklands, or else going out to the beach or to the hills or the rivers. And in fact, the course I did to get my graduate diploma was actually in natural resources, recreation use of natural areas. And out of that, I came to the conclusion that we're part of nature. That when we go out into the bush, we actually go home. It's almost like we go home to family. Mother Nature forgives you that you've often, disappointed her.
Yes.
But then when you start to use natural analogies, instead of saying natural analogies about the growth in nature, it's all about us. I mean, even the term human nature is all about, who we really are, about the way we think and why we do what we do. I use the example of a tree as a very good one, that a tree doesn't stop growing at any predetermined age. It doesn't distinguish between work and leisure. It naturally, when it was an acorn, it knew it was going to become an oak. or a major tree. Let's say an acorn would become an oak. It was never allowed to do anything else. We get told we ought to become a macadamia bush or a fruit tree because they make money.
Yeah.
And then we realise that by using these sorts of analogies, people understand straight away this is what real growth is all about. So when you may have been pushed in certain directions, and as early as your teen years, don't become an actor, don't become a singer, you'll never make money doing that, get a real job. Well, I haven't had a real job for 50 years, so and I've really enjoying my life. I am still enjoying my life. It's I think it's just we just got to keep it simple and just reflect on what we really love doing.
Definitely. And what you love doing, I notice, is you love going up to the hills with your family, and you I think it's your daughter who has a farm.
Yes.
And I've always seen the pictures of you up there, and it's, I think, the most happiest you are.
Oh, it's absolute heaven. And it's I find it's just so peaceful, and yet, you know that you're actually getting refreshed.
Yeah.
Mentally refreshed. And your pace of life has stopped. You're just enjoying the surrounds. I'd be sitting there watching a cow chew its cud. And then I think, he's over there now,
You get lost. The time doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't. You stop worrying. That's actually an interesting you just raised that, because one of the things about when you're enjoying yourself, when you're really enjoying yourself, you forget what time is.
Yes.
You say, oh, look at the time. I've got to get home. I've forgotten. And that's what it's really all about.
There's one person who just slips my mind who never wears a watch, doesn't know the time, always late to everything. And, time is man-made. It's not something that is in our nature, but we've made it in our nature.
No, we live it to. We live to it. I remember my first job way back in the good old days was of where the work ethic was really king.
Yeah.
And we knew nothing else. You'd go to work in your grey suit and white shirt on a cattle truck train into the city. You'd start work at a certain precise hour and you'd finish at a precise hour. You'd go to lunch at a precise hour. All these things were all set to the tune. Time was the essence of the whole thing. Yeah. And you couldn't be late to work because they want to see you working. If I can't see at your desk working, then I don't think you're working at all. This sort of thinking, which is, we all know today it's just shifting so rapidly. I think an important point is that I'm not necessarily advocating the work ethic be changed. This is what's happening. Yeah. And it's happening globally.
Oh,
and all I'm doing is picking up and saying we're on the crest of an incredible wave that we have the chance to make something passionately positive about, where this is where we're supposed to go and we get everything into perspective.
Yes.
Rather than be told someone that this is the way you do things and thou shalt follow the rules.
Yeah, well, if we look at now, we've got working from home, and the other thing that we've got is 4-day weeks, where what happens is, Peter, employers are now seeing the benefits of allowing people to do the work in their time as long as they get it done. And what they're seeing is more productivity.
Interesting, I just saw that, and I think you may have seen the same article, whereas when people are saying, I'm actually only working about 3 or 4 days a week, because when you look at my output, I'm achieving, as distinct from hours output, I can achieve all I have to do within about 3 or 4 days of the week. But the boss says, I need you in the workplace 5 days a week, but it's actually a question of how much output, what your output, and to measure it on output rather than the time spent there.
Exactly. I do remember seeing a program from Japan, and you know how the Japanese work. If you fall asleep at your desk, you're a valued employee. But there was this one company that changed it, and they says, no, we don't want you doing that. We want you to actually do your work and go home, basically. And their production went through the roof, because what people realised was, I don't have to pretend I'm working and pretend I'm looking busy and tire myself out. What I can do is actually get into my work, get it done, and then I can go. So what happens is production went through the roof again. And that's what it comes down to. Leading your best life is not simply doing something because someone told you that's how it's always been. I think it's challenging the system. It's changing things to make our lives better. And that's what you can find in this book, Free to Be Me. But Peter, you also have some different programs. You're a keynote speaker. You talk on many different topics, with different organisations, business and even individuals. Tell us more about those programs.
Well, again, the topics that I talk on are probably shifting a bit too with COVID, I guess, but the one that I'm finding is very popular at the moment is the second half of life is the richest half of life.
Yep.
And for a lot of the reasons that we've been talking about, that from about midlife onwards, we start to see life differently, and we start to realise that there's more to life than we thought of as when we were having to get the right job to pay the bills and get the kids through school and all those things that we set up the mortgage and pay the mortgage. We were too busy to really have time to sit down and look at who we are and what we want to do. And we were doing that because somebody at school or at home had told us that's what you should do.
Yeah.
You're encouraged to do certain things. So that I'm finding that in fact, this becomes an opportunity because we are an ageing society worldwide.
Yes.
And there's this fear that, all the young people have got to look after these old people and, pay them, they're not paying taxes anymore. Yeah. And they looked at it purely from an economic point of view. We have a rich resource of people's experience and wisdom.
Oh, yes.
In this large number of people who are over 50. So we've got a natural resource, a gold, you might say, that the world can tap into. And I see there's more and more evidence of older people going back into the workforce, not necessarily to do what they did before too. I think I used to remember Maccas were actually employed. The best Maccas were the ones who employed one older person to look after the younger ones.
Yeah.
Because you had this intergenerational connection, which raised the productivity and the enjoyment of working at those places. Yep. There's so much about the second half of life, and the difficulty is to tell people in the first half of life. It's difficult to do so because they haven't got there yet.
Yep.
I often think about one of the problems a financial planner has in helping a person plan for their retirement is he or she has not been there yet. And it's a destination that until you get there, you cannot know what it's like. You can imagine what it's like by what your parents went through or what you see other people doing.
Yes.
But you cannot imagine for a moment. But more and more, and particularly since the baby boomers, people have worked through making a seamless transition. I talk about the growth mindset. We have to have a growth mindset at work.
Yes.
We don't necessarily have to have it after we leave work, but by gee, it's incredibly important to maintain a growth mindset in some way that keeps you curious, keeps you hungry, keeps you challenged, keeps you getting out of bed every morning for a reason.
Exactly.
Becomes so important. All of this is free to be me, to be yourself, to be the person you always wanted to be without restrictions of. You know what I reckon about the work ethic? Work ethic was a big form. Public perception. Public perception is like the air you breathe.
Yes.
It's there. It controls you. You can't do without it. You can't do anything about it, and it's just there. The work ethic was just there. Nobody actually sort of said, I've decided this is the way to go. We just got to believe generation after generation for a couple of 100 years that the work ethic says you will get ready for work, you'll have a working life, and then there'll be a life after work.
Yeah.
And, that's now going out the window for all sorts of reasons. Education was one where you're educated to get a real job.
Yes.
That's changing now.
Oh, it definitely is. Peter, do you think, talking about education, that what you're teaching people here, what you're spreading the joy of here should be taught in schools?
Absolutely, it would be wonderful. How you do it it would be an interesting one, but I think certainly the question of how teachers teach children, and I think actually the teachers themselves, I think, are doing a pretty good job. I think the system is still back in the arcade years, whereas the teachers are recognising that children need to be allowed to have a chance to have some scope, right going back as early as kindergarten. I have a friend in childcare work who does an incredible job, just listening to her, what she does and encouraging the children to use their own minds and come up with ideas right through. So that I think on a one-on-one basis, it's starting to happen. The system is like a lot of law. The system is still behind.
Yeah, you need that confidence, and that's why I think by giving children choices and understanding, you can do things that you enjoy in life rather than, look, you've got to pay a mortgage. There's no way you can take that risk. Sometimes risks, they pay off, and you just got to look at your individual situation as well. Look, Peter, this book, Free to Be Me, I love it, but how do people get a copy of it?
The simplest one is on Amazon. The Amazon's actually you can buy the printed copy, which is actually printed by Amazon, or you can get the ebook version as well. So, but I mean, it is available on most online places. I know Goodreads and a few others. Yep. Certainly, it's out on there. I don't have the system set up to me. Interesting, I'm now well and truly into my second half of life. Yep. I pace myself. Yep. I could rush out into bookstores and like I did with Enjoy Being You, as I was much younger when I promoted the book. Now I rely on having it at the back of the room for speaking engagements, and it sells there, that sort of thing, as well as certainly through Amazon is where you can get it. It's on my People Garden, Australia's People Gardener website, gives you the link to Amazon to find it. Yep. But if you just go straight to Amazon and search on that title book, it comes up. And usually I think around about the $25 mark.
Fantastic. And look, Peter, talk about your website. Give your website out again, because if people want to contact you and find out all the different topics, and look, your website has some great valuable advice and tips there, so please give that out.
Yes, it's a library. It's been building and building for most of my time as a mentor. It's all one word, www.australiaspeoplegardener, GARDENER.com.au. I used to have a company with that name at one stage, and now I've let that go. But I still like using it, and as you say, the website is still stacked rich with information on just about any aspect of life, and including the teenage one, as you mentioned there. Yeah. So, I have People Gardener, Growing Better People is a sub-slogan.
Yes, that's exactly right. And look, also, Peter Nicholls has also done a couple of podcast episodes, and we'll have them in the show notes, and we'll also put them on our social media. So if you want to listen to them more and find out more about Peter, that's the way to go. Look, Peter, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I really appreciate your time. I've got a lot out of this today, our talk, and I really hope that every one of our listeners gets something out of it as well. And look, we would love to have you back on the LA Project Business Spotlight anytime you want.
I'd love that. I mean, being a speaker and a writer, of course, I love talking.
Definitely.
But I love talking about my favourite subject too. And,
enjoying being the best you can, enjoy being you, freedom to be me, all these things, they sum you up in one hit.
I do. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
I thoroughly enjoyed it. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Yes, I'd love to come back again.
Thanks, Peter. Today on the LA Project Business Spotlight, we have been speaking with Peter Nicholls, a keynote speaker and author, and most importantly, a life enjoyment mentor. This podcast is brought to you by Podcast City. If you'd like to know more about starting your very own podcast, from planning your podcast to recording, editing, and distributing your podcast to the world, just go to podcastcity.com.au. I'm Ron Fiedler for the LA Project Business Spotlight. Until next time, bye for now.